Episode 13. I hope nobody's superstitious. So we are underway. Instead of looking at it as 13, we'll just add those two numbers together. The 1 and the 3 will come up with a 4, which is 2 squared. 2, 4, 8, 16, etc. Interesting how they... I should probably say something about what this is. This is David Wheatley's podcast. Podcast, not Poscast. Thank you. We're not doing a cat show here. David Wheatley's podcast, episode 13. And yeah, I'm the guy, David Wheatley, doing all the talking here. Maybe someday we'll have guests, but I need to lay everything that I've learned in my life so far on you in a series of podcasts. So if you want to check out the guests, you should probably, and only the guests, you should probably tune in a couple of years from now. And we'll see who the guests are going to be. They're going to have to listen to all the podcasts too for homework. So probably won't have any guests. I have to be willing to do some work and get acquainted with my brain. Let's see if they can handle that. Of course they can handle that. They're going to welcome that opportunity. So, cognitive dissonance and anger and resentment and fear. So yeah, the person out there in the forest with their digital audio station set up, and the electricity is working, the bill is paid, or they have a generator far out in the back where it won't make any noise, it'll get into the microphones. And if that person's just writing for themselves, and that they will be the only listener, it goes better. As soon as it's going to go up on the internet, though, there are perils involved. There's the chance that somebody else out there may say that they actually wrote this piece of music, or that the creator listened to it and knocked it off, that the creator could not tell the difference between memory and creativity. A legitimate concern. Oddly enough, when I was looking into writing some academic papers or an academic paper, it turned out that they did not really want any creativity. They didn't want to go from 0 to 1. Conceptually, they wanted me to assemble works that had been done by other people and compare and contrast them and give all those people credit through footnotes, endnotes, bibliography, and any other forms of academic recognition, if not adulation. And so I thought how frustrating that was to not be able to come up with a new idea that did not rely heavily on the ideas that had already come. That category contrasted with what it's like to be an arts creator, where we're not supposed to, in fact, not even allowed to, come up with works that are derivative, that are based on other people's works, for fear of coming up with being categorized as an arranger or an adapter. Not that anything is wrong with both of those functions, because they're vital in our world. But still, if it's supposed to be an original work, that means it can't be based on anything else. So quite a different point of view. So no wonder that creative people will sequester themselves off from society so that there is no chance they will ever hear anybody else's work and inadvertently replicate it in their own and call it their own. But still, who can survive in a world that's not being influenced by other people's art, especially when people love other people's art and want to hear it? People like me. I like to do that. So that's why people don't accept unsolicited material. Yeah, they just don't. Too risky. They might listen to something that a friend gives because there's a lattice work of personal and professional connections. And if somebody were to come down really hard on somebody else for using 2 bars inadvertently, or a chord here or a chord there, that person would be ostracized from the group, like we talked about in group in number 3 in the social psychology, the group would ostracize that person, and it would be very difficult for them to continue. So there is some latitude among groups, especially like groups. And so, keep saying, and so, frustration and anger, unfairness in the world. There should be, I'll get up on my soapbox now. Actually, I've been on my soapbox, so I'll stay on my soapbox, which is there should be some sort of central clearinghouse for all art so that a person can create something and put it up on that website, and the bot will determine if anybody else already wrote it. So the person who created it, or person who thinks they created it, can know right away if they're, what we might say, on somebody's material. As it is now, you put a lot of time, effort, and dough into it and marketing it. And then it goes out there. Somebody says, hey, to themselves, I already wrote that. And they can get in touch with their lawyer. The lawyer says, well, wait till it makes a whole lot of money. And then you can hit them up for that. So it's a perilous situation for creatives. So it's no wonder that some writers get writer's block who would want to release something into that kind of world. But for me, it requires an amount of faith that there's also the idea of independent creation. It's possible for the person who's been in the cabin to come up with something that sounds exactly like somebody else's, as long as they can argue they never heard it. And that's got to be weird too. And to be able to justify that and be forced and pressured, backed into a corner to have to say that's how it was and prove that they never listened to anything. So back to the "it's no wonder" sentence. It's no wonder that so many people don't create, because this is a concern. Perhaps their insurance companies will come up with policies for that, and errors and omissions to be able to pay these claims. But it would be a shame, like in The Old Man and the Sea. Remember that book by Ernest Hemingway, where the fisherman goes out and lands this giant fish after tremendous effort and damaged hands and exhausted, straps it to the side of the boat to bring it back. And the other animals in the sea, the other fish, come along and gradually chomp at it till the guy finally gets back to the shore, and all that's left is the skeleton. So symbolic, and this can happen. So it takes a toughness, a mental toughness, to be able to create in the world with the way it's set up, the level of fairness or unfairness that exists now, and to press ahead and hope and pray that it's going to work out and that people will be blessed by it and benefit. And the sharks that come and try and eat it later can be pacified, or will give it bay. Okay, Copyright Office. It's important to keep current with your copyright registrations. This is another area of unfairness, which is once these samples of art are registered with the Copyright Office, they're accessible by a lot of people. And there are communities and cultures around the world that think it's okay to steal other people's stuff and make copies without paying them or getting permission. And these people have access to the Copyright Office materials. One wry joke, which is not even funny, said that the Copyright Office is the research and development department for other companies in other countries. And that's why we're the royal we, not even the royal we. The industry is trying to find ways to have treaties with other countries so the other countries will be as protective of artists' work as we are and try to be in Western countries, the United States, Canada, and Western Europe. So if I start to sound a little bit grouchy, it is annoying to have to even think like this. I get dissonance from the way I think it should be, which is we can create whatever we want and put it out there and be paid for our work. And the way it is, we can put out whatever we want, but that doesn't mean we're going to get paid for it. And that doesn't mean we're not going to get sued for it. So that kind of dissonance is really, really annoying. Okay, social psychology, music, We are under a lot of political pressure and have been as the groups fundraise by excluding or criticizing other groups. I think I will deal with this in the next podcast, number 14, because that's a big topic, how groups relate to groups, especially in a musical cultural level, often based on or defined by where people live. And I'll use the United States as an example. And then in a future podcast, something to do with Eastern Bloc countries and the kinds of music that is extant from Middle Eastern countries, especially the odd rhythms and the unusual to us percussion and wind and string instruments. So with that, I will pause this one, pause this pausecast, and please go to the description and contribute some dough. Keep us going at this breakneck pace. Keep the insights such as they are coming. And I welcome your emails, davidwheatley10@gmail.com. And thanks for joining us.